Hello and welcome back. This is part 2 of our repair of the Sony TC-WR720A dual auto reverse tape deck from the 1990s. If you recall in the last video, we removed the transport mechanisms and cleaned out the old belt residue and put in new belts. Remember, the mechanisms are the Sony TCM-190 transport mechanisms. So in this video, we're going to take a look at the results of that repair. I've put the transports back in, and let's take a look and see what we get. So now in theory, got power to the unit. Put a tape in here. Hit the play button.
Listen to the following example, but do not mark the answer on your answer sheet. You will hear
Papa, the voiture should go.
All right, so that's the forward direction for this unit. Let's go auto reverse. Nothing. Let me eject and see what's going on. It's trying. I'm going to try to goose it to run without a tape. You can push up on the sensors like this. Okay, well, sticking my fingers in there, I determined that the capstan was going in the wrong direction, which puzzled me. I thought, is that a logic issue? Is it a mechanical issue? How could the capstan be going in the wrong direction when the take-up reel seemed to be going in the correct direction? So it's time to take the unit apart again. All right, so here, taking the unit out, and I want to show you, first of all, there's a circuit board which has sensors on it, and the sensors help determine that the tape's in the machine and what else it's going on. So first of all, we have the tape sensors. So starting at the right, we have the and the far left, those are the sensors for the tape records sensors. The one in the middle is a tape sensor for the metal setting, and the second from the left is the 70 micro Dolby setting, and then there's one more which senses the tape in general. There's two other sensors on the board, however. There's one down here which is the stop sensor that determines where the mechanism is in the stop mode, and then there's one more, so there's the stop sensor, and then there's one more sensor which is got a method of determining whether or not the tape is moving, and that's this one right here. It's a pair of devices. One's an emitter and one's a receiver, and those two devices shine a light onto essentially it's the supply reel when you're going in the forward direction, and it's the take-up reel when you're going in the backwards direction. And I'm going to try to free it up here to see if I can show you what I'm talking about, but there's a little window on the back of the transport that has a alternating mirror or no mirror inside a little circle. So there's a little circle opening there, and there's a little mirror that is there or not there. Hopefully you can see it in that little circle, black circle. And that determines whether or not the tape is moving forward or not as the mechanism goes. So that little circuit board has all of those sensors on it. In order to reinstall the circuit board, you have to make sure it's in the stop mode. So the mechanism has to be sort of forwarded through its cycles until you get it back into the stop mode so that you can get the circuit board back into place. Right there is the little stop portal where that switch sits. So we want to make sure that we can get that little cam mechanism in the middle to go around until that stop window is open up enough so we can settle the circuit board back down in there. So that's the first thing I wanted to show you, was what kind of sensors are involved in this mechanism to tell the machine what it's doing. So if there's no tape in there, it won't be able to play. And guess what? I determined that the belts were put in backwards in the first video, or not backwards, but incorrectly. So if we look at how I put the belt on, I wrapped it around the 2 capstan wheels at the same time, and then the motor. And that was incorrect. It really needs to go around 1 capstan wheel and past the other, and then around the motor. So I prepared a little diagram to show you what I mean. So take a look at this little drawing so that you can see how the belt is supposed to be positioned, where the belt goes past 1 capstan flywheel, around the other, and then around the motor. And that's the proper way to install the belt. And I'm pretty sure that that's going to fix the transport issues that I was just displaying at the beginning of this video, why it wouldn't play in reverse. Because essentially the capstan was spinning in the wrong direction. Okay, so once again, this is about the 15th time putting the transport all back together again, making sure the belts are nice and settled, making sure the little tabs are in the right places, getting the screws installed to hold the mechanism back closed again, and then securing the circuit board to make sure that the electrical connections are all there, including the ribbon cable that goes into that sensor board. All right, so reconnecting all those individual things, and let's see if we can get it to work now. Let's try that. Play in the forward direction. Still no contact.
Question 2.
Yeah, there we go.
Why is the student confused?
All right, that's playing the forward direction.
我有点事，
Play in the backward direction.
谈谈。他在家吗？
Fast forward. And rewind. So I would consider this half of the deck a success. All right, so on to deck A. We did the same thing, took the belt back out, installed the belt in the correct way to get the transport to have the belt routed around those capstan flywheels correctly. And here's the action for
Question 2.
deck A.
Why is the student confused?
Okay, hit auto reverse play.
谈谈。他在家吗？
哦，他出去了，可是马上就回来，请您坐一会儿。
Okay, rewind. So we've got a rewind fail on this deck. And then if we try the fast forward, we'll see that in fact we probably have a fast forward fail as well. And this points to the issue that was mentioned on one of the forums on tape heads, that in fact what happens is there's a little tiny gear that's part of the mechanism, and that gear sometimes fails. So again, I'm trying to goose the mechanism to see what's going on, if I can feel whether or not the tape is playing and things are going in the right direction and there's proper strength and things like that. And so by sticking my fingers in there, I can determine that things are working properly when there's no tape. But when I go about playing the tape in either direction or doing fast forward and rewind, that's where the issue comes in. So that points, the fast forward and rewind issues points to that little gear potential failure. So guess what? I'm going to open up the transport mechanism one more time and take a look and see what's going on. So this is this deck A's transport mechanism, and I'm going to zoom in here a little bit so we can see the gear that has failed, and I've placed a little belt behind it, and unfortunately I can't really display with this camera the crack in the gear, but right up there is a little crack in that gear, and that means it's time to get that off and get that repaired so that I can put it back together again. And the suggestion on tape heads was to use a little bit of super glue and a little bit of baking soda mixed together into a putty to try to repair that glue. So here's the gear, and I'm going to go ahead and fetch my super glue. And up on the upper left, we've got a little bit of baking powder, baking soda. I've got my gear. I'm going to go ahead and mark the gear where the crack is. It's really hard to see. Somebody used my Sharpie to go ahead and mark where that crack is, just so that I can see where to put the glue. And then I'm going to go ahead and mix up a little bit of the glue and try to hold it with some pliers while the glue is setting. That's the plan. So I've got my super glue, give it a little dollop of super glue up on this cardboard, and quickly mix up a little bit of slurry of the baking powder with the super glue using a end of a paper clip, and go ahead and apply that onto the glue. Now, unfortunately, most of this is outside of the camera's view, but what I'm going to do is clamp and hold that long enough so that the glue can set. I gave it about 10 minutes between the time of putting the glue on and letting it set, and that seemed to be sufficient to get the glue ready. So now it's time to reinstall that little gear and hope for the best. So this has got a double gear mechanism, and they hang off of this particular motor, and when the auto reverse lever sort of pushes it one way or the other, it causes one gear to rotate one direction and one gear to rotate the other direction, basically, as it swings into place, engaging in the rest of the mechanism. So I'm just pushing it back on here, make sure it's all settled in place. Unfortunately, my hand is in the way again. There we go. And now we're going to, guess what? Reassemble the whole mechanism again. But now we're going to go ahead and put a tape in and test it on deck A. Since I've taken this thing apart several times to get it in, but I think I've made good progress here. I don't know. I'm going to put the tape in and see what we get. After repairing the little white gear.
Why is the student confused?
So we've got forward speed, rewind, fast forward, reverse
但
play.
是我明年夏天从日本到中国去的时候，会经过香港。
明年
Forward play.
아닌데 여기 수학반이고 저 옆이 역사반이에요.
Well, I'm going to call that a win. It's taken me longer than I thought, and I did have to replace one of those gears. I should have checked more closely on that gear. It looked fine the first time I sort of took it apart. So I'm going to put these doors back on, button this thing up, and call it a day. Thank you for joining me and watching. And now we have a dual tape deck Sony TC-WR720 all fixed and prepared.